All right guys, I've got several goals today. One would be to explain each of these guns to you and give you a definition, at least my definition, of entry-level rifles. Break them down, parts, what's on them, what's in them, and talk about the prices and things like that. Second would be to get them on paper at 100 yards and chronograph them so that I can get some drop data. Then we're going to stretch them out to distance. In this case, we've got 600 yards to work with at this range. That'll be plenty for each of these rounds, give you an idea of what they're capable of. All right guys, let's go ahead and start with an overview of the rifles today. We've got the Bergara B14-HMR, chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor. We've got the Remington 700, chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor. And we've got the Ruger Precision Rifle, chambered in 308. Pausing, waiting for Tikka people to get really angry. All right, take a deep breath, guys. I'm sorry I couldn't find a Tikka. I really tried to source one. We'll have to fit that into another video at a different time. You get what you get today. Hopefully it's a good video anyway. All right, folks, we're going to start out by shooting the Bergara Rifle for groups at 100 yards and recording the chronograph data so we can get some dope on this gun. In case you're not aware, DOPE is an acronym that stands for Data on Previous Engagements. DOPE is a way for snipers or precision shooters to keep track of shots made in various geographic areas at certain times with specific weather conditions, so that if they find themselves operating in that same space again, they have some information that will help them make a successful shot. So that's what I'm doing here with each of these 3 entry-level rifles. When precision shooters hand load our ammunition, we're really looking for extremely low standard deviation and extreme spread. If we can get single-digit standard deviation and extreme spread, we know that will give us the best possible chance of hitting our long-range targets. Usually this leads to tiny groups too. Most guys are happy with groups under a half an inch at 100 yards, but it really helps our margin of error if we can get that into the 1/4 to 3/8 inch range. Transfer that tiny group onto a target out of 1,000 yards, and now if our wind call is off or we don't pull the trigger perfectly, we have a better chance of still hitting the target than if our gun shot 1 inch at 100 yards. You can see what kind of SDs and extreme spreads I'm getting out of this factory ammunition. That's pretty typical of match grade factory ammo. SDs in the low double digits and extreme spreads around 20 to 30 is what I've come to expect. And there's really nothing wrong with that if your definition of long range is 600 yards. And that's not some magical number, but when you get beyond that distance, there are a lot more variables that come into play that we need to account for. So properly hand-loaded ammunition becomes almost a necessity if you want to be successful. All right guys, before we get into the actual groups here, and I'll give you a little bit closer up view, I just want to make it clear, I am personally in no way making any kind of a statement like this gun is better than that one. Each of these guns is shooting factory ammunition. The 308 is a different caliber, shooting a completely different brand and type of ammunition than the 6.5 Creeds. So I just want to make sure that you're clear on that. I'm not making any kind of a value statement based on that. So let's just go ahead and take a look at the groups. So we've got 3/8 inch group on the Bergara, and that is shooting the Hornady 140 grain ELD match. We've got a 3/4 inch group on the Ruger Precision Rifle shooting the Federal 168 grain gold medal match. And over here on the Remington 700, we got a 3/4 inch group, again shooting the Hornady 140 grain ELDMs. Now I'm going to go ahead and stretch each of these rifles out to distance, starting at 200 yards and moving to 600 yards in 100 yard increments. With each shot, I'm estimating a wind hold and using the drop data I gathered earlier from the chronograph. I imported all this data into my Kestrel ballistics computer for the Bergara rifle, and I used the GeoBallistics app on my phone for the Remington 700 and the Ruger Precision Rifle. You know, a Kestrel is a great tool for evaluating wind speed and direction, but it comes with one major downfall. It only really tells you the wind at the shooter's location. You might have several different winds and directions as the bullet travels downrange, so this is where observing your environment and reading mirage come into play in order to get an accurate picture of what the wind is doing. After shooting the first rifle, I went downrange to check out the impacts and paint the targets. So for the remainder of the targets here, I'd like to point out that my shots are all basically centered up horizontally because I was able to gather the wind data I needed at the 300 yard target. Now there is quite a lot of debate about where the wind affects the bullet the most. Some say it's the wind at the muzzle, some say it's the wind at the target. Of course, the correct answer is that all the wind affects the bullet during the entire time of flight. All right guys, here we are at the 600-yard line. And as you can see, my first hit was here off to the right. I said I was holding right edge, which meant right on the edge of the plate. And then my second shot, which I adjusted for on wind, ended up going high, but is right up here in the center line. So always adjust to center. Always adjust to center whenever you can. But that one went a little bit high. But you know, as far as our group was concerned, 3/4 inch group down there at 100 yards. You know, 3/4 to 1 inch group with the Ruger Precision Rifle in 308. You know, this is approximately 6 inches from here to here. So really doesn't surprise me to see that kind of a spread here at 600 yards out of that rifle shooting the factory ammo. I ran these rifles pretty hard by shooting each of them off the bench out to 600 yards and then running them through a PRS style competition stage. You can see here that I started standing and moved to the first barricade and engaged the 300-yard target with 2 shots. Then I transitioned to prone and engaged the same target with 2 shots. Finally, I moved over to the wood barricade and engaged the 300-yard target with 2 more shots. So as I said at the beginning of this video, I'm going to give you a definition of entry-level rifles. Remember, it's only my opinion, so don't freak out at me if you don't like what I have to say. An entry-level rifle, to me, is something quickly produced from a large manufacturer. Typically, the quality control processes aren't quite up to par. You might get a great rifle one time, and the next person buys the exact same rifle and gets a piece of junk. It happens all the time. These rifles generally cost less than $1,500 and have fairly low-end components. The triggers are especially suspect. The Ruger Precision Rifle and the Bergara B14-HMR that I tested in this video have surprisingly nice feeling 2-pound triggers. The Remington 700, on the other hand, is known to have horrible triggers. The test rifle I used in this video has a 5-pound trigger, and that's the lowest possible adjustment. Are they all like that? No. But again, it comes back to quality controls during the manufacturing process. You never know what you're going to get. The question that needs answering for most people is this: can I get into long-range precision shooting and competition using an entry-level rifle? Well, the quick answer is yes, of course you can. The slightly longer answer is yes, but spend all your money on a quality optic. That way, when you finally realize that there's so much more to experience in this game and you decide to have a custom rifle built, you'll be able to sell that entry-level rifle and put your nice glass on the custom rig, and you'll be so much happier. The bottom line, though, is that shooting a small target at distances once only reserved for highly trained snipers is now well within the reach of anyone given a certain level of understanding and practice. The gear is readily available and the prices are within reach of most people. So get out there and start banging some steel at long range. I promise, you'll learn a lot and you'll enjoy every minute. Well guys, as we finish up today, let me take a minute to thank our sponsor, Ventura Munitions. They make this all possible. As you can see, each of these entry-level rifles, and I wish, the Tikka, sorry about that Tikka fans, I am too, I wish I could have found one. All of these are capable, you know, sub-MOA guns with factory match ammunition. As long as the driver runs them right, you can get hits on target inside of an inch of angle all the way out to 600 yards and beyond with each of them. It's just a matter of what we have to deal with here today is only 600 yards. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for another great video from TFB TV.